welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one that I am doing in collaboration with my sweet friend Amber of The Most Magical 5 here on YouTube. I will go ahead and link her video below because she's doing this book tag as well. But I was recently watching Nicole's channel, and she is Irresistible Magic here on YouTube. She did a really fun Disney princess book tag. And so I watched her video and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. And she said I should do it. And so when I told Amber about it, we both decided it would be a lot of fun. So today we're going to do it. So there are 12 princesses, and each one has a different prompt in which you're supposed to show a book that fits that princess's theme or prompt. So I've gone ahead and picked out my books for each prompt. I think some of them are perfect, and then others maybe not exactly fit the theme, but I think that they're pretty good. So, and I love any reason to share books with people, so I'm super excited to do this tag. As I mentioned, Amber's video will also be linked down below, but I will also go ahead and include Nicole's video so that you guys can go ahead and watch hers. And then she was tagged by someone else, so if you go and watch Nicole's, the lady who tagged her is linked in Nicole's video as well. So without further ado, let's get started with our first princess and prompt, which is Snow White. So I'm supposed to show my favorite classic. I actually have two for this, and sadly, I can't find either of the books. I'm thinking that they might be at my husband's work. He has a huge library at his work. And I think he might have both of them there. So I'm just gonna show this version, but my two favorite classics are, of course, Alice in Wonderland. I have loved Alice in Wonderland as long as I can remember. I love everything about it. The characters, the setting itself. If I could fall down a rabbit hole and wind up in Wonderland, I would do it without even thinking twice. I have always been drawn to those characters, and I love everything Alice in Wonderland related. Books, retellings, movies, you name it. But I also have a super soft spot in my heart for The Wizard of Oz. I think in a way they're kind of similar in the sense that this girl who feels like her life is kind of boring and dull falls down a rabbit hole or gets swept up in a tornado and whisked off to a land full of adventure and new people and color. And I've always just really loved it. So those are my two favorite classics. So Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz. Our second princess and prompt number 2 is Cinderella, a book you stayed up reading past your bedtime. I love this one. I thought it was so clever because get it? You know, Cinderella's clock strikes midnight and her beautiful ball gown goes away. I thought that was a really clever prompt for Cinderella. So I picked the book The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. I love this book. This was a book club book that I read years and years ago, and I had actually picked this book. It was my month to choose the book that we were going to be reading, and I picked this one, and it was the day before book club, and I hadn't read any of it, and I was feeling really guilty because I had just been really busy, and I was like, I can't show up to book club and not have read any of this book. So I sat down in the hopes of just getting a few chapters in so I could at least say I had given it a shot. And I read the entire book that night. And it is 552 pages. So I stayed up reading it all night, and I love it. It is still to this day, hands down, one of my absolute all-time favorite books. So I'm gonna read the back's little blurb for you guys just so you can get a kind of, feel for what it is. A tiny girl is abandoned on a ship headed for Australia in 1913. She arrives completely alone with nothing but a small suitcase containing a few clothes and a single book, a beautiful volume of fairy tales. She is taken in by the dockmaster and his wife and raised as their own. On her 21st birthday, they tell her the truth, and with her sense of self shattered and very little to go on, Nell sets out to trace her real identity. Her quest leads her to the Blackhurst Manor on the Cornish coast and the secrets of a doomed family. But it is not until her granddaughter, Cassandra, takes up the search after Nell's death and all the pieces of the puzzle are assembled. A spellbinding tale of mystery and self-discovery. The Forgotten Garden will hold onto your imagination and never let go. So this book is actually like a time shift. So it's told from the perspective of both Nell and her granddaughter Cassandra. So they flip back and forth between time periods. I was hooked from the very first page. And like I said, I stayed up reading it very late that night and never put it down. And it is still a book that holds my heart. So I definitely recommend The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. Prompt 3 is Aurora, and that is your favorite classic romance. This one was a no-brainer and such an easy pick for me. I chose Wuthering Heights, and this is the Seasons edition. So it's this beautiful white paper cover, and this is the winter seasons. So this book is just absolutely beautiful. But Wuthering Heights is not only my favorite classic romance, it is my favorite book of all time. The very dark and sad love story between Heathcliff and Catherine captured my heart. In this classic, Wuthering Heights, Catherine is forced to choose between passionate, tortured gypsy Heathcliff and gentle, well-bred Edgar Linton. Catherine surrenders to the exception of her class and sets off a domino effect with lasting consequences. As bitterness and vengeance at this betrayal are visited upon the next generation, Catherine and Heathcliff's innocent heirs must struggle to escape the legacy of love's tortured past. I just love this book and how heart-wrenching I think it is. It's definitely not always a happy love story. But there's just something about it. And if you've ever seen the version that was made for TV, I believe it was by the BBC, I could be wrong, but Tom Hardy plays Heathcliff, and man is he swoony. So Wuthering Heights is my pick for Aurora. Prompt 4 is Ariel, a book about making sacrifices and fighting for your dreams. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, because I think throughout the entire Harry Potter series, so many of the characters make sacrifices, and they're kind of all for the purpose of, you know, fighting Voldemort and having that dream of a world without him and the dark arts. You know, and Harry's trying to defeat him in the hopes that it will bring him some sort of peace for his parents. But I think in these two books, especially with the Half-Blood Prince, you know, we see the sacrifice that Dumbledore makes of dying in order to, you know, carry on with the plan that he has set in motion, and the sacrifice that Snape makes of being the one to take his life so that Draco doesn't have to. And then, of course, you know, in the Half-Blood Prince and, of course, the Deathly Hallows, you know, Harry makes sacrifices as far as, you know, his friendships and from leaving school to continue to hunt down the Horcrux, as do Hermione and Ron going with him. But we also see all of the sacrifices that Snape has made along the way to protect Harry and to play the part that he had. But so many of the characters in Harry Potter, you know, sacrifice so many things. Remus, Harry's parents, Neville's parents. So yes, I think that Harry Potter as a whole series is full of making sacrifices. But these two especially, I think, kind of hit home for me for that prompt. For prompt number 5, we have Belle, a book about a smart, independent main character. So I picked Straight On Till Morning, which is Liz Braswell's retelling twisted tale of Peter Pan. I absolutely loved this book. It was such a fascinating take on the Peter Pan story, where Peter Pan essentially kind of takes a back seat. He's not the focus. Wendy is the focus, and along with her, Tinkerbell. And she, you know, sets off on an adventure because, you know, she's kind of disappointed in the fact that her brothers have gone on to school and she's supposed to move away and become a governess. She pictures more for her life. So I'm going to read the little blurb. It says, what if Wendy first traveled to Neverland with Captain Hook? 16-year-old Wendy Darling's life is not what she imagined it would be. The doldrums of an empty house after her brothers have gone to school the dull parties where everyone thinks she talks too much, and the fact that her parents have decided to send her away to Ireland as a governess. It all makes her wish things could be different. Wendy's only real escape is writing down tales of Neverland. After nearly meeting her hero, Peter Pan, 4 years earlier, she still holds on to the childhood hope that this magical home truly exists. She also holds on to his shadow, and when an opportunity to travel to Neverland via pirate ship presents itself, Wendy makes a deal with the devil. But Neverland isn't quite the place she imagined it would be. Unexpected dangers and strange foes pop up at every turn, and a little pixie named Tinkerbell seems less than willing to help. But when Captain Hook reveals some rather permanent and evil plans for Neverland, it's up to the two of them to save Peter and his world. So I absolutely love this. Wendy has to, be very imaginative, and she has to think her way out of problems, and her and Tinkerbell basically have to troubleshoot their way through Neverland in a race against time to save Peter and to defeat Captain Hook. And it was a really fun way to kind of go to Neverland with Peter kind of just not really even being a main part of it. So I really liked it. 6 is for Jasmine, a book where character challenges his or her social norms. I picked The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Janoff, and I picked this one simply because during World War II, women weren't really valued as an important part of the war effort still. And so women doing important tasks and stuff wasn't something that was very normal or common. But without the aid of a lot of the things that the women did during World War II, things could have been very different. So The Lost Girls of Paris is about women who were used as spies. So it says, one morning while passing through Grand Central Station Terminal on her way to work, Grace Healy finds an abandoned suitcase tucked beneath a bench. Unable to resist her own curiosity, Grace opens the suitcase where she discovers a dozen photographs, each of a different woman. In a moment of impulse, Grace takes the photographs and quickly leaves the station. Grace soon learns that the suitcase belonged to a woman named Eleanor Trigg, leader of a network of female secret agents who were deployed out of London during the war. 12 of these women were sent to occupied Europe as couriers and radio operators to aid the resistance. But they never returned home, their fates a mystery. Setting out to learn the truth behind the women in the photographs, Grace finds herself drawn to a young mother-turned-agent named Marie, whose daring mission overseas reveals a remarkable story of friendship, valor, and betrayal. Vividly rendered and inspired by true events, the New York Times bestselling author Pam Janoff shines a light on the incredible heroics of the brave women of the war and weaves a mesmerizing tale of courage, sisterhood, and the great strength of women to survive in the hardest of circumstances. So in this book, we meet so many amazing women who are kind of tasked with really hard decisions of leaving their families, of leaving their children in the hopes that they can make a difference to turn the tides of the war. And a lot of them go and do some very scary things because they really are kind of put into, double agents. So they are all taken from London and put into France where they speak French, and they are used to transmit messages back to the Allied forces. And that was just not something that was done at that time. And so, women were very unsuspecting. No one really assumed that they were there doing things for the war effort. So it's a very good book. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one, and I would definitely recommend it. It was done very well. So I have read and listened to the audiobook, so I would recommend either option. It's very good. Prompt 7 is for Pocahontas, a book where the ending was a roller coaster of emotion. This is my most recently finished book. I was hooked from the beginning, but absolutely the ending had me feeling all the feels. It is The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. The premise of this book is that on the night of Lydia Bird's birthday, her fiance Freddie dies in a car accident. And she is instantly sent into a tailspin of, her entire life is now going to be completely different. And the story is kind of set in the world where she is awake and, you know, feeling the loss of Freddie and trying to figure out life without him. And the world where she is asleep, where Freddie is still very much alive and their lives are still on track. They're still to get married. They're still very much in love. And it's a constant struggle between, you know, wanting to be in the present world with her family and wanting to be in the dream world with Freddie. I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. I will be giving a kind of more in-depth review of it in my February wrap-up. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on it and more about the story, you can look for that video coming soon. But I thought it was perfect for the Pocahontas prompt because I was crying, I was laughing, I was smiling. The ending had me, you know, holding on and wondering what was going to happen. So it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. So prompt 8 is for Mulan, which is a book where the main character is a kick-butt female. So I chose The Strange Case of the Alchemists by Theodore Goss. I absolutely loved this book. I also read and listened along to this book on audiobook, and the narrator for this one is really great as well. So if you really enjoy books where the narrator does great accents and stuff, this one's a really good one to listen to. This book actually has several kick-butt female characters in it. So the main character is Mary Jackal, and she kind of goes on a quest to solve a murder with the help of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, but a bunch of other amazing female characters. So it says, Mary Jackal, alone and penniless following her parents' death, quickly finds herself drawn into the secrets of her father's mysterious past. A clue leads her to believe that Edward Hyde, her father's former friend and a murderer, may be nearby, and there is still a reward for information leading to his capture, a reward that would solve all of her immediate financial woes. But her hunt leads her not to Edward Hyde, but to Tiana, his daughter, a child left behind to be raised by nuns. With the assistance of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, Mary continues her search for the elusive Hyde and soon gathers around her more women, all of whom have been created through terrifying experimentation. Beatrice Rappaccini, Catherine Moreau, and Justine Frankenstein. When their investigations lead them to the discovery of a secret society of immoral and power-crazed scientists, the horrors of their past soon arrive on their doorsteps as well. And now it is up to the 5 of them to stop the Society des Alchemistes. Quite simply, it is time for the monsters to triumph over the monstrous. So she basically meets all of these women who have been created by other scientists, so Justine Frankenstein and Rappaccini and Dr. Moreau's daughter. They kind of form this crime-fighting bond and go about trying to figure out all of these mysterious things. And this is actually the first book in a series, and I absolutely loved it. It sounds kind of scary and spooky. It's not really, so I definitely recommend it for anyone who kind of likes murder mystery type books with a fascinating cast of characters. It sounded darker than it was. There is a bit of mystery, there is a bit of, you know, gore as far as they, you know, talk about the murder scenes and stuff themselves, but it's very good. Number 9 is for Tiana, a book where the character puts their dreams above a romance. This one was so hard for me, and I don't think that my book fits exactly with the theme, but I'm gonna go ahead and show it anyway. So I actually chose 2 books, so Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island. And I chose this book because Anne, you know, she grew up at Green Gables Farm, and she has always kind of been a dreamer and someone who is very strong-willed and wants to, you know, fulfill her dreams of becoming a teacher and a writer. And growing up alongside her has always been a childhood friend, or I guess technically frenemy because she didn't always care for him, the dashing Gilbert Blythe. And you know, Gilbert has always kind of had a crush on Anne and been, you know, head over heels for her spunk and her individuality. And he does in fact propose to her. And Anne completely blows him off and moves away to become a teacher and a famous writer. And she follows those dreams. If you have ever read any of the Anne of Green Gables series, then you know ultimately in the end, she does end up with Gilbert. So this one didn't necessarily fit perfectly because in the end, you know, romance does win out. But in reality, I couldn't think of a book where that didn't happen eventually. But she does ultimately end up with him. But to begin with, she does put her dreams of being a teacher and a writer above a marriage proposal from Gilbert Blythe. So I chose Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island. Prompt 10 is Rapunzel, a book that features an artist. Again, I don't know if this one exactly fits because, you know, I think I was picturing artist in the form of like, you know, a painter or a sculptor. But I think that circus performers are also artists. And so I chose this book. This is called The Book of Speculation. Weiler. I absolutely love this book. This is one of those books that drew me in simply because I thought the cover was gorgeous and I didn't really know anything about it. And from the moment I started reading it, I was fascinated. So I'm definitely going to just read this to you because I think the blurb does a better job at describing what it is. Dear Mr. Watson, I came across this book at auction as part of a larger lot I purchased on speculation. The damage renders it useless to me, but a name inside of it led me to believe that it might be of interest to you or your family. One day, a mysterious old book arrives on Simon Watson's doorstep on Long Island Sound, filled with elaborate script, sketches, and whimsical flourishes. It tells of doomed lovers and generations of circus mermaids who have drowned just like Simon's mother on July 24th, which is just weeks away. As his childhood friend and fellow librarian Alice looks on with alarm, Simon becomes increasingly worried about his sister, who ran off to join the circus 6 years ago. Could there possibly be a curse on their family? What secrets are hidden in the fantastic book, and will those secrets doom or save the remaining Watsons? So Simon Watson works at a library and he receives this letter from a man in the mail and a book. And in the book, there are beautiful drawings and stories and poems about these circus performers who are circus mermaids, and they all die on the same day on July 24th. And Simon's mother also died on that day. And his sister has recently run away and joined the circus, and he is becoming very worried that these stories are in fact true and that his sister is in danger. In this story, you also meet a cast of characters, circus performers, Simon's best friend Alice, the house in which they have inherited is also kind of its own character in a way. It's very old, but it's sitting on the side of a cliff and it's starting to fall apart, and they're worried that it's one day going to fall off the side of the cliff and tumble down towards the ocean. Simon himself is also an amazing swimmer, and his mother taught him how to hold his breath underwater many, many times. And so throughout the book, you see several scenes in which Simon is in the ocean swimming. And so it's just, this book is very fascinating, and you're constantly wondering what's going to happen. And the book itself does have beautiful art pieces in it. But then his sister is a performer. She actually reads tarot cards, and her boyfriend is a completely head-to-toe tattooed man who I believe is either a fire breather or he swallows swords. I don't remember, but it's a very good book. And for anyone who is fascinated in mermaids or circuses or mysteries, I definitely recommend this one. And the cover is beautiful. So prompt 11 is for Merida, a book that has a mother-daughter relationship. This prompt had me, thinking about all of the books I've read And the one mother-daughter relation out to me above others. You know, I first thought about Little Women because the relationship between Marmee and the 4 March sisters is very strong. But I ultimately went with this 3-book series that is actually written by my sweet friend Amber. So she might be surprised because I don't think I told her that I was going to be showing this. So it is her Luna series. So there are 3 books in this series, the first of which is on Luna Time. The second is In Light of Luna, and the third is Dear Luna. And this follows the story of Vanessa Marshall. So I'm going to read to you the back of the very first book. Vanessa Marshall spent her life in and out of foster care with only a vague recollection of the woman that left her behind. When she receives a strange letter from her mother 3 weeks before her 18th birthday, Vanessa knows it's her only shot at finding her real family. The letter instructs her to jump off the Port Swan Pier into the ocean at midnight under the next full moon. With the steadfast hope that her mother would be waiting for her, Vanessa jumps, only to find that she's come up for air 70 years in the past. Journals written by women who took the same time-altering jump help Vanessa realize that the mystery of her mother's life spans generations and is far more complex than she could ever have dreamed. While living in 1949, Vanessa develops feelings for a boy despite warnings from the previous travelers not to fall in love. As she begins to unravel her mother's web of secrets, Vanessa discovers that the truth is anything but easy and the answers are not influenced by the past, but have the power to alter her future forever. I absolutely love Amber's Luna series. With each book, we are introduced to more journal entries, more people from Vanessa's past, more secrets, more revelations, and each book just gets better and better. Even though in these stories we don't really see a mother-daughter relationship that is tangible, it is one daughter's search for her mother and one mother's search for her daughter in a way. And I absolutely love it. If you have not read any of these books, I do know that you can purchase them. I will leave them all linked below, and I 100% recommend them. And not just because my friend Amber wrote them, but because they are an amazing story, and I think everybody would fall in love with all of these characters. So, and I just think they're beautiful. Okay, last but not least, we have Anna and Elsa for Prompt 12, which is a book that showcases the relationship between siblings. And I chose Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. This is basically a retelling of Snow White and Rose Red. And they are 2 sisters who recently moved from their big, beautiful house into a cottage in the woods because their father has gone missing, and their mother has basically fallen into a deep, dark hole of despair and sorrow. And so these 2 sisters kind of wander off into the woods one day and are sent on a little adventure to kind of figure out what went wrong in their life and what happened to their father. Not only do I love this story, but the artwork in this book is absolutely stunning. So Snow and Rose were 2 sisters as different as night and day. They lived in the woods, but it hadn't always been so. Once they lived in a big house with spectacular gardens and an army of servants. Once they had a father and a mother who loved them more than the sun and the moon. But that was before their father disappeared into the woods and their mother disappeared into sorrow. This is their story, and the story of the enchanted woods that have been waiting for them to break a set of terrible spells. Snow and Rose is a reimagining of the classic but little-known fairy tale Snow White and Rose Red. Best-selling author and illustrator Emily Winfield Martin has created a world that sits on the border of enchantment with characters who are grounded in real emotions, and readers will recognize it in themselves. So I not only love this story, but the artwork in here is beautiful. So Emily not only wrote this, but she illustrates all of these pictures. This is the Mushroom Boy, and I just absolutely love this. There are other pieces in here, like here's a picture of the sisters. So it's also visually stunning. Here's a little library of hidden treasures that they find in the forest. This is a middle grade book, but I do think that any reader would enjoy it. So I definitely recommend that as well. This Disney Princess prompt was so fun, and it really challenged me to look for books that fit these themes and to kind of, I don't know, relive some of the magic and wonder that I felt in reading these stories. Books have such a special place in my heart, and I always love, you know, holding on to the stories and the adventures that these books take you on. And it was really fun to share them with you guys. So if you liked this prompt, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, I will have Amber's video as well as Nicole's linked below so that you can go watch those. And I would love to know which books you would pick for these prompts. So if you are interested in telling me, please let me know below. And if you would like to film this video yourself, if you have a YouTube channel here, then please do so and tag Amber and I in it so that we know that you did it. Because I would really, really love to see which books that you picked for each of these princesses. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, guys. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful day.